My name is Sean Leonard. I'm an Aboriginal medium, and I speak the language of spirit. Spirits communicate with me. I see, I feel, I hear. I'm on a mission of discovery and healing. I'm reconnecting with my Mikmaq culture and connecting people with those living in the spirit world. When spirit has a message to come through, I give it with love. I am Spirit Talker. Join me on my journey.
Well, my name is Sean Leonard. I'm a Mikmaq Indigenous psychic medium that lives in Nova Scotia, Canada. I'm also an author of a book called Spirit Talker, which is coming out tomorrow, August 8th, which is super awesome. Well, my name is Sean Leonard. I'm a Mikmaq Indigenous psychic medium that lives in Nova Scotia, Canada. And I've been doing this work for, it's been so long, I can't even remember most days. Since my 20s, and I'm an old fart now, so I'm like 51. So like over 25 years I've been doing this work, so a while. I'm also an author of a book called Spirit Talker, which is coming out tomorrow, August 8th, which is super awesome. And that is published by Hayos Publishing. And I also have an oracle card deck, also published by Hayos Publishing, called Wisdom of the Elders, which will be coming out on October 24th. And I'm the host of a TV show on APTN in Canada, which is a channel within Canada itself, called Spirit Talker, which allows me to travel around in the first 4 seasons, all around Canada, going to different Indigenous communities and learning from elders, but also helping people heal through my spirit connections. I'm also a teacher of an online course called Spirit Talker Track, which is probably what I take the most pride in. I mean, having a book and a card deck and, having a TV show is really cool, but, my greatest joy and passion is helping people learn, grow, and develop within themselves, because it's one thing to have that knowledge for yourself, but to share it in a way that people can, implement in their own lives is something that I take great pride in. Well, as a person, a very inquisitive person in the spirit world. I mean, I was at a very young age that I became aware that there was different levels of energy. Different realities of sorts, different dimensions. And we live in one, obviously, we live in a physical dimension. We're in this physical form, but there's something that's greater that's in each and every one of us. You can call it your spirit, your aura. I mean, there's many words for it, but the intelligence or the persona of which you are that is in this form existed before this life and will exist after this physical life. And I like to say that there is only life. There is no real death. There's a death of the body, but it still gives life in a different way. But our spirit moves from this form into different form, which I was able to kind of make connections to, especially as a young boy. I mean, I remember many encounters when I was young where I had experiences where people would visit me. Typically it was my great-grandparents at the beginning. And then as I grew and had many dreams, I started to have out-of-body experiences. And I realized that my great-grandparents and people that I loved were not in this dream world. And in the dream world, even though I was in spirit form, I met and encountered different entities, like people who are more earthbound, and maybe people would call them ghosts today, but they're just still spirits, with different personas and personalities that have not transcended the earthly physical life into a higher level dimension of the light, of the creator, of where we come from, that beginning source. And, I still run into them here and there, spirits that are earthbound, and I'm very intrigued by them. And as I grew and got older and I started to develop and grow as a spirit talker and as a medium, I wanted to learn more about the different levels of energy. So I went out to experience it. I went out exploring in a sense of connecting to these different beings or these spirits that were still earthbound. And I wanted to understand, why were they there? Why were they so enriched or engulfed in the ego that they used to once have, or that they still continue to have, that they're not surrendering to move on to a high level energy or higher dimensional energy? And I think, like in life, physical life, we struggle, we get trapped, we get stuck in so many different ways. It could be fear, anxiety, phobia that limits us in certain ways. And many people in life are limited by their belief systems about what they hold and believe to be true about themselves. And these spirits are no different. They're just people. And they have this belief that they're not worthy, they're not good enough, or they feel that they're going to be punished. There's all kinds of limiting beliefs that stop them from moving on, or they've done harm to people and they feel like they're going to be punished for that. I mean, there is karma, but it doesn't play out in the sense that we think that, you kill somebody, you're going to be killed. I mean, maybe it does, and maybe you plan lives like that. But the best thing I could do is, when I meet these people, is to try to help eliminate fear, be kind. I try to incorporate, the 7 sacred grandfather teachings, in life, humility, truth, love, and honesty, and all those things. And I just want to make sure that, that I exemplify that not only to physical people, but to spirit people. Because in life, as I teach people through my courses online, my online course, Spirit Talker Tribe, and through my book, Spirit Talker, or through the Wisdom of the Elders Oracle card deck, I'm working at helping people in our level of energy to understand and transcend and to reach a higher level of energy. So when I come in contact with some of these entities or spirits that are earthbound, I treat them no different. I treat them the same. I treat them with respect. I mean, people have done some really terrible and horrible things that I've run into. And most times it's unfortunate, because just like in life, if you don't want to hear it, you can avoid. If you're not ready for it, you can just move away from it. And I encounter that sometimes when I come into contact with some of these beings that are earthbound. And even though my intention is to help, they don't always want help. And they just avoid me, which is sad, because I wish they would just listen to me or talk to me, or just be open to even to my energy, so that they may be able to transcend what has kept them here in the first place. Life has been the teacher for me, and all of my experiences that I have gained through life and experience and working with spirit. Because this is my area of expertise or focus that I've chosen to go into in life. And I've gained so much knowledge and wisdom because of choosing to move into that field with all of my heart. And, when you write a book, it's not a get rich scheme or anything like that. You make very little money off a book. But again, what brings me joy and what moves me in my own heart is helping people understand these concepts or these principles or ideas that I've had through my experiences, and share them with people in a way that can enrich their lives and help them understand the spirit world, maybe as I see it, or maybe as other, professional or non-professional psychic mediums have learned to understand it as well. Well, I mean, I had a trillion ideas, but with HeHost, they obviously help you whittle it all down to what it's meant to be. Obviously, there has to be an aspect of who I am, because there's people out, just like when we do a new podcast on your show, not everybody might not know who I am. So you have to get into the aspect of, okay, who I am, and what brought me to this, or what some of the experiences that led me to this place in life, which I have done in this book. So probably a third of the book is about that journey, about me becoming this person that I am. And through my journeys, you get to learn through my experiences. And then another partway through the book, I then start to teach people about meditation, prayerful words, like how to speak to, your guides, your angels, your ancestors, your loved ones, and include them in having a relationship with them. And then I also want to help people understand, the difference between, speaking with spirit and then also understanding how to create space so that you can receive information from spirit. Because whether or not you want to work as a professional psychic medium or not, or you're just like, a person who wants to be more spiritually connected, this book can help people in all ranges to deepen that understanding and growth so that they can better, incorporate that into their own life. So an aspect of this has to do with meditation as well. And there's many exercises in the book too, to kind of help you, again, connect to your guides, connect to your loved ones, also learn how to create space in your mind so that you could receive information from spirit. And what that looks like, and understanding even the language that spirit would utilize. And I'm not speaking like a foreign language. I'm speaking an energetic language that I think transcends all life in the universe. Not, we all have different dialects and different words. I mean, whether you're Scottish, English, French, German, I mean, we may speak in different ways with tongues. The way we speak with our words and how we express those words. But there's a language that spirit communicates through all of us that transcends the physical aspect of communication. So it'd be like clairvoyance, being able to see, clairsentience, clairaudence, claircognizance, really, the aspects of how spirit can and does communicate messages or guidance, or direction, and what that looks like when they do and why they're doing it. For instance, I was in Newfoundland not that long ago, and I was in St. John's, and I did an event there. And because I remember this event because it was my last one that I've just done not too long ago. And there was a lady that came. I connected to her father. I mean, I know that I received his name, but then after I received his name and I started tuning into what he looked like and mannerism, things like that, he showed me something in my mind. And one of those things that he showed me was an old boot. But it was weird what he did with the boot because it was very unique. I kind of have to follow the process of where they guide and take me. But he took this old boot and he put it out in the garden. It was just one boot. I was like, okay, this is odd. You must have kept, and I asked her because I'm confused. I said, would you know why your dad is showing me an old boot? Did you keep one of his boots and plant a plant in it or something? Because he's emphasizing one boot. And I said, the boot might even have holes in it for some reason, but I don't know if it's his boot, but it's an old boot. It seems to have a plant in it that looks like it's in a garden. And I don't know why he's emphasizing this old boot in the garden. And then she didn't know right away. And then it just clicked in. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot this. On Father's Day, I took an old boot. It wasn't my father's, but I put it out in my garden and I filled it full of dirt and I planted a plant in it. But because my dad loves dogs, in the boot, I have a little ornamental dog that I placed in there, and I dedicated it to my father when I put it there. So why would a spirit bring, now nobody knows this, only her, and it means something to her and it's touched her. Hence, she did this on Father's Day just past. So why would he bring something so specific up in that sense? Well, one, I mean, obviously I'm not hanging out at her house looking at her plant on Father's Day. And this is not public knowledge. It's not something she's sharing on Facebook. It's just something she did that she thought about when she did it, and was talking to her father as she did it in dedication to him, but never told anyone. So bringing that up was validation, and I was seeing from his eyes. So when I see, I mean, just as I described to you, the process of seeing, like, and I know everyone that is watching this podcast, wherever they may be, are envisioning this woman putting a boot in a garden that is surrounded by dirt, putting a plant in, and a little dog on top. You could probably see that in your own mind because I've spoken that to you. But what people don't understand is that's one of the ways that spirit uses to communicate is through those thoughts. And I'm aware when these thoughts are coming to me because I know it's not a random thought in my head. There's no way that random thought should be moving through my brain. But when it's like specifically for that person, I'm talking to their father and it aligns with something she has done with her father, then how do I give that message? I say, well, I'm seeing through your dad's eyes, and he wants to say he saw you did this for him. And she cried because then she knew when she was speaking to her dad out in the garden, placing the dog, thinking about him on Father's Day, that he was there to observe this. So what greater gift that I could be part of, because I'm just part of this process. I'm literally the middleman, the medium, the spirit talker that has this communication come through me for someone else. And that's the service that I provide. I provide the conduit. I like to say I'm like a translator. And that spirit communicates to me through this language of seeing, feeling. And when I do receive parts of this language, it's not just seeing. When I see something, I feel what they're trying to tell me. I feel there's a depth to the vision. There's depth to it in a sense is that I know this is important. I know this is connected to your father. I can feel it in my heart. I can feel it in my gut that this is all connected somehow. But then when she reveals the story to me, then it all makes sense. I'm like, of course, this is why he's showing me this. And that's how that process takes place. It may be a lot of people maybe watch Spirit Talker on APTN or wherever they may be, or watch other mediums and see a name come through for somebody like Charlie or something like this, you know. But and that's great. I mean, to get the name of a person, but you know what I think is awesome is the memories that only you have or that you share that no one else's know that they bring through that connect you or reconnect you with the memory and knowing that they're still with you. And that being part of that process in a live setting is just amazing. I just, you know, because it's all in the moment. You can't prepare for anything like this. You just have to be part of the process, trust the process, and do as good as job as you possibly can. And when you do that in that sense, without fear or judgment or just saying it, even if you think it's crazy, I don't care, because when spirit has shown me something, I know it's relevant, it's important, and I have to trust it, and it means something to that person. And then that's where this person then realizes that, hey, my dad's still part of my life. My dad still visits me. And what triggered that was me talking to him, me thinking about him, and that brought him to me. So moving forward in her life, it shifts this uncertainty whether or not her father's with her to a space of, hey, I know my dad's with me. And I know my dad is it sees the communication I have for him. Well, it just enriches my mediumship. Like I'm pretty adept in the language already. But I mean, in Indigenous culture, Indigenous culture is very spiritually connected. All ceremonies are including our elders in spirit, our ancestors, you know, the creator, and the sacredness of all things that are around us. In Indigenous culture, we have a word called, I shouldn't say Indigenous culture, all Indigenous cultures have a word, but in Mi'kmaq, we say Emsit Nogama, which means all of my relations. And when we say these things, when we speak things and we speak to Source Creator and we speak that out loud, we're including the energy and the connection with all things through the plant nation, the insect nation, the animal nation, you know, the bird nation, the human nation, the world, you know, Mother Earth, you know, all of these things together that we're calling in the universal energy that connects us all. And that awareness, knowing that all of this has a spirit. You know, it's not just a rock. It's not just a flower. It's not just a tree. There's so much energy that connects everything that is in divine order and purpose, that the things could not be the way they are unless everything was divinely placed in the way that they are, in unison to cohabitate and co-help each other to exist. We couldn't exist without the world. We couldn't exist without the plants or the trees or the animals or the fish or the insects. Like all these things have to universally work together to create the environment for which we experience as a physical being. And I think that's amazing. And what I've learned from elders, I mean, one of the things in the book that I'll talk about that I learned from a medicine woman in Ontario named Patricia Toulouse. And I met her on the TV show Filming Spirit Talker. And one of the things she told me in brief, because I was going to a fire ceremony, and then she says, do you know the 4 sacred fire teachings? And I'm like, no. And you know, I've never heard them. And she goes, well, and then she started going into the 4 sacred fires. And one of the first sacred fire, obviously, is the sun. You know, and we refer, because we start all of our ceremonies as Indigenous people facing east, where the sun rises upon the earth in the morning, and in the sacredness of that sun rising. And we see that as the physical aspect of the Creator's light within the world itself. It's a sacred fire. Even though it's a gas, luminous gas, we see it as a sacred fire. And then the second sacred fire is Mother Earth, the core, the heartbeat of Mother Earth herself. You know, in the center of Earth, you know, there's a sacred fire that exists, and it expresses itself through the molten rock that comes out into the world, like in Hawaii and in sacred places like this, because it's the life bringer, and the nutrients within Mother Earth herself is what springs energy and life into the world. I mean, I've been in Hawaii and looked in the middle of a lava field, and there'd be a coconut tree, you know, by itself with nothing around it, and still being able to find enough nutrients to take root and grow within that lava even itself. Obviously, it's cooled down quite a bit, but it's still, you know, one of those grandfathers, that first rock, that part of that first or that second sacred fire. And then the third sacred fire is our ceremonies, the ceremonial sacred fire, that we make our offerings to, that we say our prayers, that we include in all our ceremonies, whether it's a sweat ceremony or, you know, after somebody passes, you know, that we have a burning fire for people for 4 days, where we only put in good wood, good intentions, good words, especially for the people that are making their transition in through the light itself onto the other side. And then what a lot of people don't also think of as the 4 sacred fire. And that 4 sacred fire is the sacred fire that exists within your heart, that connects. The heartbeat of Mother Earth beats in your own chest. That thump thump, that sacred drumbeat that, you know, is within Mother Earth, is within you too. And it's a reminder that we have that sacred fire connected to us. And it's all connected between the sun, the earth, our ceremonies, and ourselves. And honoring ourselves and loving ourselves unconditionally. And, you know, there's so much stuff going on in the world. I mean, there's fear, worry, anxiety, stress that, you know, limit people in so many ways, like I said there previously. And what the answer to that is, you know, surrender and release and loving yourself unconditionally, being present in the moment, honoring your sacred fire. And if you can think about how you can only say good words to a ceremonial sacred fire, and make sure you don't put wet, crappy wood into it, that you put only the best wood into the fire. What are we doing for ourselves? How are we nurturing ourselves with our words, our thoughts, even the food that we eat? You know, it's not optimal. And we're not loving ourselves as much as we need to. And I think the combination of learning that from Patricia Toulouse, I thought was an amazing lesson, a spiritual lesson of the connection between us, the Creator, Mother Earth, our ceremonies, how we honor the Great Spirit and our ancestors, but also ourselves. Well, when I talk about medicine, I mean, in Indigenous culture, because I'm Indigenous, I'm a proud Indigenous person, and the importance of who I am as an Indigenous Mi'kmaq person, you know, enriches who I am as a spirit talker and as a psychic medium. And I want people to, one, you know, respect Indigenous culture, but I also want people to have the knowledge that they can incorporate in their lives. So I talk about, you know, the 4 sacred medicines, you know, sage, sweetgrass, tobacco, and cedar. But I also talk about that whatever culture you are, you know, all cultures hold sacred medicines. And even though those 4 medicines are very sacred, you know, to all Indigenous people, that, you know, we all have different medicines in your culture, and honoring those medicines, because it's not necessarily that you have to just use cedar or just use sage or just use sweetgrass. It could be frankincense, it could be myrrh, it could be incense, or whatever, like, floats your boat, whatever's in your culture, to honor that to the fullest ability. It's the intention, because I talk about this too. I mean, the medicines are important because all these medicines hold specific intentions and powers, let's say. But it's the words that you speak while using them that really give the medicine the power. And I teach a little bit about smudging in the sense because I know Spirit wanted me to share and help people understand smudging in a greater detail. And I teach people about, one, smudging themselves with what the medicines that serve them, but also how to clear the space from which that they're surrounded by, because there's different energies that you may bring into the home. Old piece of furniture, you may bring in an old crusty person that has a residual energy in your house that you don't want to hang out there, or you have spirit hanging out that you don't want there sometimes. But how do you shift that? How do you change that? And I mean, typically, in religion, you'll see priests or people who are spiritual people that will utilize their medicine, which would be water, which water holds intentions too. And if you've ever watched Dr. Emoto, he's got a great book on the power of words and intentions in water. He took water and he placed intentions to it. He wrote the word on water and then crystallized it and then spoke the word to the water. And then when it froze, every time he would change the word or the intention that he placed on the water, it changed the crystallization. So there's a power even in other cultures and spiritual beliefs like Christianity and other things like this. But they typically would use holy water. They throw it around. What I don't get, and what you see is a lot on TV, is like, it's a lot of anger. The power of Christ condemns you, and they're throwing the angry at the spirits for whatever reason, because obviously they don't know that. And this is an Albert Einstein theory, but it's not a theory, it's truth. You can't change a level of energy approaching it from the same level of energy. So if here you are like trying to change the energy of your home and you start throwing holy water around, cursing at it and being angry, that's exactly what you're attracting. It's what you're putting out. It's what's coming out of your heart's sacred fire. It's not part of the 7 sacred grandfather teachings that we hold highly in regard to what guides us through life in a good way, walking in life in a good way. So in the book, I talk about how it's important to shift your words to kindness, love, unconditional love, respect, and then put that in smoke. Water may only hit, unless you're like spraying a mist that's like staying in the room, but smoke has the same. It's an element. Like you got fire, you got water, you got fumes like smoke and things like this. They hold, just as water, they hold your words, they hold your intentions. So even when you're handling your medicine, it's important to do it with a good intention, a good way. These are powerful medicines, and you need to honor the medicine and the power that they hold. And only speak good things. If you can imagine that for a sacred fire, that you're putting only good wood in, saying good words, why do we forget that ourselves? If we're going through a tough time, Creator, bless me, surround me with an unconditional loving light. Shift this negative energy to a positive loving energy that may be attracted into my life and only bring good people, good situations, and good circumstances that will empower me each and every day of my life. Anything else I give to you and allow you to remove from me. Emsit Nogama. So just even saying that with your medicine and smudging yourself, that's what you're surrounding yourself with. But if you're trying to move energy in a space, it's the same thing. It's not, angry and the power of Christ condemns you. I don't know if Jesus would run around saying, I condemn you. It's ridiculous. There's science involved. You can see it with Dr. Emoto. You can understand it from, Einstein. The same level of energy cannot change the same level of energy. It has to be different. So if you want to change fear, you have to approach it from kindness, love, respect, and not fear. And that's what I teach people to put in their medicines. Whatever medicine works for them in their culture. Whatever is a culture appropriate for them to use. They make sure your intent's a good one,
Yes.
a loving one, a kind one, a respectful one, and spirits that are earthbound. Even that's why I have earthbound spirits sometimes that are typically ghosts that they're not in alignment with my energy, so they avoid me. They may say something to me and move away from me, because if they're in my space, I have that ability then to, through my aura, my energy, to transition them into the light if need be. But if they don't want to, they better stay out of my bubble. Not that I'm fearful of them, I'm not. It's just that if you want help, come into my bubble, and I'll send that love to you that you maybe need to move on. I haven't moved that many spirits onto the other side because many just typically just avoid me. But let's say probably more than 10 and less than 15 that I've, maybe like 13 or so, that I have moved on, or I have helped move on throughout my whole entire life of doing the work that I do. That doesn't mean that I'm not available for that if that ever should present itself again. It's just that I don't run into spirits everywhere. And if I do, like sometimes literally, I've heard them running from me. I've heard them running, and I'm like, why are you running? Like, why? And I'll tell you a story. I remember going over to an island here in Nova Scotia called Tancook Island. And I wasn't going there to seek out spirits, or I was going there to visit my partner's friend, who became my friend, and her name is Hilary Dion on Big Tancook Island. And so I went out there, and there was a little shack where somebody was selling knickknacks, like women's clothing and jewelry, and they even had some witches' brooms in there and stuff, kind of eclectic things and different things for people that were visiting the island. And so I walk into this little fishing shack that was just off the ferry. That it's no longer there now because I think the owner took the fishing shack back. But I walked off there and walked into this fishing shack, and they were chit-chatting amongst themselves. And there was only the three of us in there. And I just walked through the door kind of like, I didn't really want to look at women's clothing or anything like that. I looked at some of her knickknack stuff, which was nice. And then I heard this man go, "Oh my God, he's going to know all my secrets." And then I heard him run out the door, like as you could hear his feet going. I'm like, oh my God, there's a spirit here. You have a spirit that was just hanging out in your store. I said, she goes, and she's, and I told her what he had said. And she goes, "Oh my God, that's so strange." Because just up the hill behind the shack, there was a man that killed himself and his two children. And I didn't hear any children, but I did hear this man. So I feel the children of most 100% moved on into the light of the spirit world of the other side. But because of what this man has done, nobody's like, keep him from the light. But he sounded fearful even when he spoke to me. And he was afraid that I would learn about who he was, which I did anyway. And he avoided me like the plague. He ran from me because he knew that I would know that he was there. And I didn't walk in going, "Hey, I'm spirit talker Sean Leonard." I didn't even know he was there until he spoke, to tell you the truth. It was when he spoke that I realized he was there. And he was loud. I could hear him with my ears. And he ran for the hills, literally. He ran for the hills. And I've gone back many times hoping that I'd reconnect to him, and he still stays clear of me. I wish, despite what he's done and his experience of, what he has done, that somehow I could help him move into the light. And then maybe there'll be future lives that he needs to learn through, our many incarnations, that he would, that maybe the karma would work itself out in some way for him so he could learn about, I'm pretty sure he's not mentally well. Obviously, nobody kills themselves and their children if you're mentally well. He's mentally unwell. He has an illness. And I would like him to move beyond the illness and his ego and his experience, so that maybe in the light he could maybe find peace and get the help he needs, and maybe transcend beyond that lifetime that was probably not so good if you're not mentally well. Well, there's a bunch of new chapters, obviously, with teachings and exercises and such like this that I'm really happy about. But there's a few, I can't say there's one story that I really, really like. And it's really more about wanting people to know that they can have a relationship with their people. It's nice to come to a spirit talk or a medium, and I don't want people to feel like they have to do that. We can remain connected with people and talk to them and include them. We can make offerings to them, have ceremonies for them ourselves, and speak to them and know that they're still with us and they're hearing us. Because a lot of the times when I do sessions, they show me things that, again, no one should know, but they're actually, the only way I could know is if I was in their life. that I was in the room, or I heard this, or I was there. So their people are there. So they're telling me things to say, hey, I am with you. I still visit you. And one of these stories is like that. And on the front of the book, you can see there's a white feather, and which is amazing. And there's a story about Hawaii, because I love Hawaii. It's a sacred space. It's got that second sacred fire everywhere, the lava rock, and all of the vegetation there is just like thriving with nutrients, and it's just greener than green. It's just like it's just vibrantly alive, and I just love that space and place, and I feel very spiritual when I'm there and connected. And often when I go to Hawaii, and I've been to all the islands, but I went to the big island of Hawaii. That's the newest island. It's the roughest, and I wanted to go on top of one of the volcanoes. And the reason why I chose to go up on the volcano is because in how we see the eagle as being sacred, flying closer to the crater because it's higher and closer to the sun, which we see as a physical emanation of the great spirit of creator, grandfather sun. And so I decide I'm going to go up on the highest point that I can on one of the volcanoes in Hawaii, which are very, very high. And you get up there. I mean, you're down on normal sea level. It's like 25, 26 degrees, sunny. You're in shorts. You go up there, it's like 0. There might be snow on some of the rocks. It's freezing, and the wind's blowing, and it's not blowing lightly either. It's blowing freaking cold. But I go up there, and I drive up there, because I wanted to go up there for the sunset. I couldn't make it there for the sunrise, so I wanted to go up there for the sunset. As again, that's sacred fire and making an offering, and part of that emanation to creator. So I went up there, and Michelle, my wife, was in the car. Her daughter was in the car, Ashley, and they wanted to stay in the car because I got out for a minute. They're like, "Yep, this is way too cold for me. We'll watch the sunset from the car." And here I brought my sacred medicine, my tobacco, and I got out and I stood there as the sun was setting, and I held it over my heart, and I talked to my dad. I talked to my grandmother. I talked to my Aunt Nancy. I talked to my great-grandparents. And I said to them all, I said, I love it being here so much. And this is closest to being in the spirit world that I can imagine as being here. That I'm inviting you to be here with me in this space. So I want you to know that you have an open invitation to spend the next 2 weeks with me over this holiday, this trip with my wife, Michelle, and Ashley in Hawaii. So I'm offering this to you to be with me. I love you. Thank you for continuing to walk with me through life. And then I said, Emsit Nogama. I put down my tobacco, and then I watched the sunset. As soon as the sunset, I ran to the car because it was cold, and I was numb. Drove down the hill, went to my Airbnb, which is like a condo on the ocean. And I sat, the morning we got up the next day, and it takes 2.5 hours to get to the top of this place. So it was a bit later. We went to bed. I get up. We usually get up before sunrise because I love watching the sunrise and the sacredness of that, again, that sacred fire coming up. And when I'm in Hawaii, I do what I do pretty much every day there is get up and have a 2.5 hour to 3 hour coffee time and just enjoy listening to the ocean and smelling the air, listening to the morning doves and having the breeze that's always in Hawaii, just blowing this warm, gentle breeze that is just nice. And so we did that the very next day. And we're having our coffee, and we're sitting on the 3rd floor of our condo, which again you could see the ocean off to the right, and it was a little bit breezy. And we're sitting there drinking our coffee, me and Michelle, and maybe about 25 feet away from up high, like in the sky, I notice a feather about a 1/2 inch big floating down. And it's like slow. Like, this is weird. Like, and you can see the trees blowing, but a 1/2 inch feather is floating down like in slow motion. And it's not getting affected by the wind. And Michelle's looking at it. I'm looking. I'm like, do you see that? Like, that's not so weird. She goes, that is weird. And And I was just amazed by this was taking place. I knew it was like a moment that was surreal. And I thought it was just, that was it. It was just going to be the feather floating down. And I watched it, maybe after like a few minutes, float past my deck, 25 feet out, past the railing, and it started going down towards the ground. And she goes, that was really strange. And I said, yeah. I said, she goes, it must have been a sign. I said, I'm sure it is. But I hear something in my head. I hear, Sean, hold out your hand. So I held out my hand. And Michelle says, what are you doing? I'm like, I have no idea. I literally just heard a voice in my head say, hold up my hand. And then the feather floated back up, straight up, and just about a foot above my deck, and then floated directly towards me and landed right in the center of my palm. And I cried. Michelle cried. I was like, it was like one of the most spiritual moments I've had in my life. Despite all of the things I've experienced, this is not even possible. This is like a magic show. And this is not magic, this is spirit. And, after we were done, I asked Michelle, or she asked me, she goes, who do you think did this? And I told her about my prayer, about including all of my ancestors, my people, my loved ones, and inviting them to be with me on this trip last night when we watched the sunset on the volcano. And I'm sure it was them. And it was just a validation. Hey, Sean, I am with you. And that it was so powerful that I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. It's not something that I want. I would love to see it again. I don't know if it will ever happen in my life again, but it happened once, and that's all it needed to happen, so that I would know and see that physical validation of sorts that they were there. I had no anticipation. I didn't put it out there saying, okay, well, you have to kind of prove to me that you're around. It was just, they did it without request. And it really got my attention. And even now I could literally, every time I tell this story, I get tears in my eyes because it's just so powerful. So when they were asking me about the book and they designed the cover. You can see the eagle up here. That is, that was gifted to me by someone else. But Tracy Metallic did the art for this eagle, and it's also included in the Love Eagle card in Wisdom of the Elders. And they said, "What else would you like to put on the book?" I said, "I want a white feather." And I told them about the story, and they put it on and asked me if I liked it, and I said I absolutely love it. And it represents the overall arc of the book. It's nice to know about the language, it's nice to know about your guides and understand different levels of energy and spirit world, but the big message in all this, because not everybody's going to be a professional medium or psychic or anything like that, it's about you're connected to your people. Remember they're there, talk to them, include them, invite them, honor them, and they're going to remind you that they are there. They will show you in some unique way that they are.
Something that you kept? Or?
I kept the feather. This is where it gets weird. I put the feather in my wallet and it disappeared. I don't know how it disappeared. I even have a little pocket in my wallet that I put it in. I was like, I'm keeping this feather. When I went to look at my wallet, it wasn't even there. I don't know how it came out of because even the little pocket, I pulled it out. I even got a little stone in there that like a little quartz crystal that I got from another sacred site that is still in there. But this feather was gone. It was just vanished. And you know what? And I've gotten another feather. I was telling this story in Calgary, Alberta. And didn't a feather float down from the ceiling while I was telling it? And then another psychic in the audience said, "You see that feather was floating down?" I said, "Yeah." So I picked it up, put it back in the same pouch, gone. I'm like,
well, I think it's
I don't know how, but I don't know. It just disappears, like it just vanishes. One of these days I'm going to put it in something that next time I get a feather in a very unique way like that, I'm going to put it in a glass jar and and I'm going to seal it so tight it's never going to be opened. In October, I'm not sure which date yet, but season 4 of Spirit Talker will be coming out. And this year, or for season 4, we started in Manitoba. And we went from Manitoba to Saskatchewan to Alberta to British Columbia. So predominantly the season 1, season 2 was in Atlantic Canada because of COVID. We couldn't move outside of that COVID bubble. Then we got to go to Quebec and Ontario for season 3. Season 4, we got to go all the way across the country and connect with some amazing Indigenous people and communities, and learn some different aspects of culture from different people that I wasn't familiar with. And I had an amazing time and met many elders and great people along my journey. And I can't wait that everybody can watch this and share in some of that wisdom too.
My name is Sean Leonard. I'm an Aboriginal medium, and I speak the language of spirit. Spirits communicate with me. I see, I feel, I hear. I'm on a mission of discovery and healing. I'm reconnecting with my Mikmaq culture and connecting people with those living in the spirit world. When spirit has a message to come through, I give it with love. I am Spirit Talker. Join me on my journey.